everyone, and welcome to the Limitless Ladies in Leadership podcast. I am your host, Danielle, and I've created a space for the many powerful, creative, and limitless female leaders to share their stories. From female CEOs to professional athletes and doctors, every powerful woman has a story to tell. There's no guarantee where this podcast will take us, so welcome to the unfiltered, unedited, and badass space for all women to align. Let's get started. On the phone with me today is founder and CEO of Energy Bits, Catherine Arnston. After her sister was diagnosed with breast cancer and was advised by her doctor that an alkaline diet would help her heal, Catherine dove into the research and learned that algae was the most alkaline, plant-based, nutrient-dense food in the world and has been used for 50 years in Asia to improve health and longevity. It took Catherine 10 years to bring algae into the mainstream and build Energy Bits into a national company, and her success is what brings us to our conversation today. Welcome, Catherine.
So glad to be here. Thank you. And hello to all those other limitless ladies. We're all limitless, actually. We just don't know it.
Thank you. I know I'm learning this more and more with my own discovery and speaking to others. It's like we all have that little fire, but just some of us don't see it yet.
Yeah. It's hard when we're trying to live up to other people's expectations, and screw that. Sorry, but live up to your own expectations. Don't let anybody else tell you what you should be. Only you know.
Right. Exactly. Oh, I can't wait to get started with you today. So let's start with kind of the dark history on how this whole thing started with Energy Bits. I know that this started with your sister. So would you mind sharing that?
Sure. So I'm Canadian, actually, although I've lived in Boston for 33 years, but all my family's still in Canada. And I have an MBA, and I had a corporate career. I wasn't in love with it, but it was good enough. Like a lot of us, we do that sort of thing to make money. And then out of the blue, almost 13 years ago, my younger sister in Canada developed breast cancer. Now, first of all, I want to let everyone know she's fine. She survived. But as she was preparing for her chemo, her oncologist, which happened to be a female doctor, by the way, so lucky us, because women tend to be more interested in nutrition, her oncologist advised her to change her diet to an alkaline diet because she said it would help with her healing as she went through chemo. Now, they didn't tell her how it would help her or what an alkaline diet was. So the first thing she did was when she got home was call me, because I'm her big sis and I love her. And I'm also a really good researcher. I can find out anything, as you'll learn. So I said, I have no idea what this stuff is. Yeah, I'm an MBA. What do I know about nutrition? But I will find out. And I did. And you could too. And you just go on the internet and Google alkaline diet. And it turned out to be primarily a plant-based diet because of the phytonutrients and the chlorophyll that have been proven for decades to build your immune system. So I did a lot of research and found foods for her to eat, foods for her not to eat. She went through chemo, she completely healed, and she's every year we celebrate another year of her being cancer-free, and she's up to year 11. So that's the best news. Now, in the process of helping her, I must have read about 500 articles, 10 books, and I thought, man, this alkaline diet, plant-based nutrition stuff is pretty powerful and compelling and science-based, but nobody was talking about it because this was 13 years ago. So I thought, well, I have no background and I have no idea how I will do this, but I'm going to get the word out somehow. So I gave up my corporate career of 25 years.
Wow.
I went back to school. I didn't have time for a full registered dietitian's degree. So I went to a place called the Institute for Integrative Nutrition in New York, where I got a health coaching certificate. So it gave me a 1-year certificate. It was enough to give me some kind of credentials and background. And then I taught nutrition for a year. I taught plant-based nutrition. I put my own curriculum together, and I gave these workshops for free at corporations and hospitals. And that's where the true magic happened and where I really had my epiphany about algae. Because as I was teaching people about the importance of greens and vegetables, I found out I wasn't telling them anything they didn't already know. Because heck, remember, our mothers have been trying to get us to eat vegetables since we were kids, right?
Right.
But what I did learn is that even though everyone knew what they should do, there were too many obstacles interfering. They didn't live near a grocery store, or they were too heavy to carry home from the grocery store, or they took up too much room in their fridge, or too long to clean, to cook, to eat. Their kids wouldn't eat them. Their husbands wouldn't eat them. They had digestive issues. Like, the list was endless. I thought, okay, I've seen the science about plant-based nutrition and how important it is. And if I can't get people to get the green nutrition in them with eating vegetables, I need to find a way that's fast and easy and science-based, blah, blah, blah. So I went back to everything I found for my sister, just did a deeper dive in everything. It took months and nothing was working. And then I got to algae, and that's when the magic happened, because it turns out algae is the most alkaline food in the world. It has the highest concentration of chlorophyll in the world. It has even 25 times more chlorophyll than liquid chlorophyll.
Wow.
It has 500 times more chlorophyll than arugula. It's been endorsed by NASA as the most nutrient-dense food in the world. NASA says 1 gram of algae has 1,000 grams, equal to 1,000 grams of fruits and vegetables because of the nutrient density. It's endorsed by the United Nations as the answer to world hunger because, drum roll, it has the highest concentration of protein in the world. It has 3 times the amount of protein as steak or chicken or seafood. It's also the most studied food in the world. So all these things I'm telling you now and thousands more are all based on science. There's almost 100,000 studies, not 5, not 50, not 500, not 5,000. 100,000 is a big number. There's about 60,000 on spirulina, which is one of the algae, and about 40,000 on chlorella, documenting its ability to give you energy, focus. It helps with your immune system, increases sports performance, sports recovery. Like, it's unbelievable what this stuff does. And it's all proven in scientific documents. And then on top of that, algae's been used for centuries. The Egyptians used to wrap themselves in it for skin and wellness. And the Japanese have been using it for 70 years. They use it for health, beauty, wellness. They take it every day. And they are known for having the best longevity, lowest cancer rates. And it's a multi-billion, that's with a B, multi-billion-dollar agricultural crop, which is also surprising because people probably think algae, because we sell it in tablets that look like a pill, they think it's a supplement, but it's not. It is a food crop. It is a sustainable food crop, no different than kale or broccoli, except it's the most nutrient-dense food in the world. So when I found all this out, and the only problem with algae seemed to be the quality was poor because most of it came from China, and that nobody was explaining it to anyone here in Asia, or in America rather, either telling people how and why it worked and making the packaging compelling. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take my 25 years experience as a marketing executive, and I don't care how long it takes, but I'm going to help people understand what this stuff does, because most of our illnesses are chronic illnesses. It doesn't matter whether it's diabetes, heart disease, COVID even, are due to nutritional deficiencies and too many toxins. And algae satisfies both of those issues. There's spirulina, fills all your nutritional gaps, and chlorella pulls out toxins. And there you have it.
Wow. Okay, that was already a ton of information.
And I'm 11 years in. I figure I've got at least another 11 years to go.
Yeah. Gosh, I know. To be able to get through all those documents, it's going to take you a minute.
Yeah, I know. I got to be a speed reader.
Right. And as more are going to continue to emerge. So I want to talk a little more about the alkalinity side of things, because for me, I don't know if you remember, but in 2015, I had a thyroid cancer diagnosis, which dove me into the whole plant-based and everything. And I didn't come across algae at the time, but I saw the relationships in the studies between an alkaline environment and the lack of growth of cancer cells. So let's talk about that a little bit. Why is it difficult for cancer cells to live in a more alkaline environment?
Well, there's a gentleman a scientist by the name of Otto Warburg, who's German. He's passed away, of course. He won a Nobel Prize in 1918 for discovering that cancer and any disease can only exist in an acidic environment. And in acidic environments in your cells or your blood or anywhere other than your stomach has high pH for acidity for digestion purposes, but at the cellular level, that means those cells aren't getting oxygen. And so what's happening is there are a buildup of toxins and a buildup of free radicals. And the combination of lack of oxygen, too many free radicals, and too many toxins cause the cell to get sick. And when it's sick, it loses its ability to communicate. And that process very often causes it to turn into a cancerous cell, which is an uncontrolled growth of a diseased cell. So the key for your maintaining your health, including your immune system, is to preserve the neutral pH that your body and your at the cellular level needs, so that it can do all the functioning that it needs to do. Part of that is keeping the cell wall permeable, and you do that with healthy fats. And by the way, chlorophyll is not only the most alkaline nutrient in the world, it's also a fat-based pigment, so it heals the cell walls. So that's the big issue with alkalinity, and what happened. But I'll focus in on one aspect of that, which is the blood alkalinity. So everybody knows your body temperature needs to be 97.6, I think, to be healthy. But there's another number that you need to be aware of, and it's the pH of your blood. So it's the balance of acidity to alkalinity. And your pH of your blood is right smack dab in the middle. The continuum is 0 to 14, and your blood needs to be 7.34. And when it's at that level, then everything's working properly. But the problem is when you eat too much acidic food, like sugar or dairy or animal protein, or even when you work out or when you're anxious, that causes chemicals to be released in your body which are acidic. So what happens is it changes your blood from that 7.34, which is the neutral pH, to an acidic level. Now, your body's so intelligent that you would die if your blood became too acidic. So what it does is it automatically extracts minerals like calcium, magnesium, potassium, which are all alkaline, from your bones, from your organs, from your cells, and it automatically balances out that acidic pH back to 7.34. But because when that happens, if it happens over and over and over again, that strains your immune system, that strains your bones, because you're pulling, the key to healthy bones are to have lots of healthy minerals and collagens, not calcium necessarily. So it causes osteoporosis in your bones. It causes your immune system to be weakened. It causes your organs to be weakened. And so that's why my sister's oncologist wanted her to have an alkaline diet, so that process of straining your immune system to balance out your blood pH wouldn't happen. And so and it's really interesting. And I'll just tell you one more little tidbit on that, because I know you're an athlete. You know, again, our Mother Nature is so intelligent. In our hemoglobin, there's a negative charge around each one of those red blood cells. And the reason why that's important is because that those negative charge around the hemoglobin means that they repel one another. It's very similar to if you hold magnets up to one another, you can feel that repelling, right? So when by repelling one another in your hemoglobin, that keeps the hemoglobin round. And when it's round, it can hold the iron atom, which is what carries oxygen in your blood. But when you strip off the negative charge because of this acidity from too much sugar or whatever, the hemoglobin now clumps, because it's not repelling one another. That does two things. Number one, it becomes a distorted shape, so it can no longer carry oxygen, which causes damage to your organs, to your body, because they need oxygen to survive, number one. And number two, it can't fit into the tiny capillaries because now they're so clumped together. So algae, because it's the most alkaline food, and spirulina in particular, because it gets absorbed so almost instantly because there's no cellulose wall, helps to restore the alkalinity. It helps restore the iron atom back in your hemoglobin, and so it also helps oxygenate your body. So it's pretty interesting. It's fascinating to me, as you know, I didn't come from a science background, but I've had to learn a lot about physiology and obviously nutrition and chemical processes of our body. And when you start to understand how your body works and what it needs, algae makes so much sense, because it does everything that you need, and it keeps you working, your body, your cellular structure working at an optimal level, so that you can achieve optimal health, optimal performance, optimal recovery. It's just the most amazing food in the world. I think I told you a couple of years ago, I was on Shark Tank, and they didn't invest. I didn't want their money, but it was a kind of a cool experience. But Mark Cuban accused me of not being in love with being an entrepreneur. He said, we think you're just in love with algae. And I said to him, well, if you knew as much about algae as I did, you'd be in love with it too. And it's true, I am in love with algae, because I've never found anything in my entire life that is so complete, that answers all of my questions, that there's not a single, after 11 years of researching this thing, I haven't found one thing that sticks out as not making any sense. It is, I call it intelligent food, because you have to be intelligent to take it, and it knows exactly what to do in your body.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So a bunch of things are going through my head as you're spouting off all this information with the alkalinity. And one of the things that, and this has always kind of bugged me, but I think this gives me a little bit more context as you're explaining, is I'm sure you're familiar with like the Run for the Cure, all these things, these breast cancer organizations that put on these runs and events and all these things. And ironically, they give a glass of milk at the end because it's like milk for the boobies. And I know that for so long, like there's been this controversy of like, but milk, stimulates cancer growth. And I thought, well, I know it's also partially because of the hormones that are the natural hormones that are found in milk, the potential added hormones that are in there, other things, but I wasn't even considering the lack of alkalinity. And then we were talking about taking calcium from the bones. That was another topic that I had heard of, but I didn't quite understand how that was happening. So it makes sense with the polarity of the ions as well. So thank you for explaining that.
Yeah. It's so unfortunate. For a while I was angry because I felt we've been lied to, and we have been lied to, but it's not, some of it's not been purposeful. Mm-hmm. It's just the way the world works, is that you go with what you know at the time. And then what happens is then you learn something new. Now, the question is, once you've learned something new, are you going to adjust? I know how Columbus must have felt when he found out that the earth was indeed round, and he came back to prove it, that he didn't fall off the cliff. But some people probably still resisted the new knowledge. And a lot of these organizations, the heart disease, the
Cancer Society,
diabetes associations, they are still so rooted in the old dogma, because their entire platform, their foundation funding comes from these big organizations like the milk marketing board. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, they're not fast to adjust to the new reality that some of these food groups are contributing to the very diseases that they are trying to prevent. And so it really falls on shoulders of little indie organizations and companies like mine to try to help educate people about the truth.
Yeah.
And it will eventually filter up, but it's not going to be, this kind of change is not a top down, it's a bottom up.
Yeah.
So I encourage everyone to educate yourself as much as you can. We provide as much as we can on our website. But I can pretty much promise you that almost any small company like mine, who tends to be started by someone because of a passion project, someone either they got sick or someone in their family got sick, they're telling you something that's closer to reality. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say the truth, because the word truth is based on what you know at the time. It's something that could be true to you, but that you don't have the most relevant or current information. So I'm not pointing any fingers, I'm not making any judgments, but the world has changed and our knowledge base has changed. And if you want to live the best life ever, you need to learn what that requires. Yeah. And I can tell you, it's not acidic food.
Yeah, absolutely. And what came to mind too, is you were talking about like the lack of research and the industry kind of being a little bit behind what's really going on. I've been experiencing this too as a personal trainer. I'm working with a dietitian that owns the gym that I work out of right now. And, great guy, like knows a ton of stuff, but hasn't re-studied dietetics and hasn't stayed up with like the common stuff. So I was actually a client of his before I started working with him. And in the very beginning, the second he finds out that I'm plant-based, he's like, oh yeah, you're not going to be able to get enough protein like that. I'm like, trust me, I've been doing this for 5 years. I have no issue building muscle. I don't even count protein. Now I do, but I didn't then. And he was just like, yeah, you're going to have to start adding fish or something. I'm like, trust me, I'm okay. And I've been proving it. So,
well, it's pretty funny because when I first started the company, we got noticed by runners and then triathletes and then Olympic athletes. And so we kind of got veered off into being a sports nutrition company because it gave the runners and triathletes so much energy and didn't upset their stomach like all those carb-based drinks and bars. So I ended up speaking often at triathlon clubs and so now this was, remember, 6 or 7 years ago, and plant-based nutrition was just starting to, percolate a little bit. But I literally would get heckled by these triathletes. And they would say, how can something with 1 calorie, because there's only 1 calorie in each one of these tablets, even though there's 64% protein and 40 vitamins and minerals and blah, blah, blah. How can something with 1 calorie give me energy? They dug in because they belonged to the old guard that equated energy with calories. And I had to go through a scientific deep dive to walk them through why the spirulina algae gave them energy. And it's a combination of the fact that all the protein's already in amino acids, so your body doesn't have to expend any energy to get access to them. Because, by the way, 15% of your entire energy, it goes towards digestion. So when you don't have to use up that kind of energy for digestion, you get it back. It's like a free bank deposit. Also, the fact that spirulina does not have a cellulose wall because it's technically a bacteria, it gets absorbed into your bloodstream almost instantly. Again, no energy required. That it has a very high concentration of B vitamins. Anyone who knows about energy drinks knows that they're loaded with B vitamins. B vitamins convert glucose and protein into energy. Spirulina also is what's called a vasodilator. It opens up your blood vessels, so your blood with the oxygen and nutrients can flow better to your brain and to your muscle groups, which give you energy. It's loaded with iron, which carries oxygen, and oxygen gives you energy. It's loaded with boron that helps with your synapses, so it helps you with your focus. It's loaded with essential fatty acids. So I had to go through like point by point by point by point to show them there was a completely scientific proof. I mean, it does things like increases what's called your VO2 max, which is your oxygenation ability. We have people that use the spirulina and the chlorella actually for when they're going into higher altitudes because there's less oxygen available. So some of them were still, old school, and just even though I presented the science, they weren't going to adjust. But who cares what anybody else thinks? If you're taking it and you're feeling better, isn't that what counts?
Right. Like, but then the problem is ego gets in the way, right? Like, well, everyone else around me thinks that I'm crazy or thinks that this isn't going to work, so I probably shouldn't do it, even though I feel better. It's like,
I know. Fortunately, I mean, I stand on the shoulders of these scientists who've been researching algae and winning Nobel Prizes since the early 1900s. I mean, research dates back to the late 1800s. But I am probably one of the first, if not the first, to take the science and make it understandable by consumers and even practitioners. And it has not been easy. I had to, like you said, bury my ego. I realized I'm not going to convince everybody. So I'm just trying to, provide information to individuals who are open to wanting to be better and healthier and want to take control over their health and their body and not give it up to the medical profession unless they need something sort of very invasive. And it just is what it is. And I enjoy that. I enjoy helping people be better and be healthier because that's what got me started. I wasn't planning on building a company at all. I just wanted to help my sister.
Yeah. And actually
and then I just kept going.
Yeah. And this is a great segue into my next topic, which focuses more on the leadership side of things. So you did all this research, you're helping your sister out, you're learning all about alkalinity and algae and all this stuff. But how did that shift into like, oh, you know what? I'm going to start selling this.
Well, I entered a lot of contests, entrepreneurial contests, because you think about it. Here I was starting a company in a field I had zero experience in, and so I, people were telling me I was crazy, and I thought, am I crazy? I don't know. I just something tells me to keep going, and so I wanted to see if I could, at least get some support from different organizations. So. Um, uh, because when I saw that the algae was used in other countries and that it did all these great things, um, I was determined that it was something that was needed here. So it was pretty rough going. I had zero money, so I had to do things in, like just I had to be a real scrappy person. I could only buy the smallest amount of product, and I couldn't do my own packaging, so I went to Vistaprint and would buy labels, literally 4 at a time, and would hand label them. I mean, one of these days I'll show people what we started with. I used to sell them out of my knapsack in my gym to my friends who knew me. It started really, really small, and I had to teach myself web development. I had to teach myself packaging design. I had to teach myself supply chain management. I was by myself for the first 4 years, like zero staff, working out of my condo. In fact, we worked out of my condo for the first 8 of the 11 years we've been operating.
Wow.
8 years. My entire apartment was inventory, literature. My bathtub was full of inventory. My kitchen was full. There wasn't a spot in my apartment that wasn't my business material. And then finally I said, I can't take it anymore. So I rented a unit in my condo building just down the hall, and we were there for a year, but it was a studio, and then that was too small, and we moved to another unit, which is where we are now. We've been 2 years there, and then next year we'll probably go into what I call a big boy's office, because we're finally getting bigger and generating steady income. But so I had to I did win one competition, I will say, after I entered so many of them. Then it was a nice one. It was the Entrepreneur magazine, Entrepreneur of the Year. And I chuckled because I won the same award that Daniel Lubinsky, who's the founder and CEO of Kind Bars, won.
Wow.
I sent him a letter saying, hey, I won the same award you did, and I got $15,000. And he sent me a nice letter congratulating me, but I was hoping that maybe we could meet, but that didn't happen. But that $15,000 gave me enough money to go the next level of packaging my product into smaller packages for the retail community. I must have changed my market approach 20 or 30 times. I redesigned my website probably at least 20 times. I couldn't afford real executives, so I only hired interns for the first 9 or 10 years, and I probably had 100 come through here. But trouble with interns is they're still in school and they know nothing, and so you have to teach them everything.
Yeah.
I'm now hiring better and people with actual experience. But it was a struggle. I mean, I didn't have money to eat, to go out. The irony is, during lockdown with COVID, my life didn't change at all, because I've been in lockdown for 10 years because I couldn't afford to really do anything. But we are now, and I'm so proud that I pulled myself up from the bootstraps and not only learned package design. And by the way, so when I say I learned how to package and teach myself package design, these are the kinds of things that you do when you are passionate about your purpose and you will let nothing stop you. So I couldn't afford a package designer. So I thought, well, if I want to sell in boxes at places in, like Whole Foods, I thought, well, how do I do that? So I went to Whole Foods and I got their empty boxes of Kind Bars and Cliff Bars. I got like 10 of them, and I lined them up on my dining room table and got my notepad, and I measured the average length, the average width, the average height. I saw what they had on the front, the back, and I thought, okay, I'll mock up my own. And I mocked it up on paper, and I wrote the copy, and then I Googled graphic designers. So I sent them my images and they created a PDF for me. And then I went online and Googled box packaging companies, and I found one. I had to go through about 4 or 5. Nobody, by the way, when you're small, nobody wants your business. You're more of a pest. You're like a fly in the ointment, because they want big companies. But I just so you pay more because you're ordering smaller quantities, but you just do it. And so I got my first box. It was pretty ugly, but I used that for the first for another 3 or 4 years. And I did the same thing with the little pouches. And then recently I was at a show, well, just prior to COVID, and I was at a trade show, and the company beside me had these gorgeous, what I call canisters. And I thought, oh, I want that. And so I just, again, Googled, taught myself design of a canister. I mocked up an idea and found a company, and it took a year and 3 sets of trials because they are actually made in China. But we now have probably the most gorgeous packaging, bar none, of any company anywhere, period. And it didn't happen overnight, but and the reason, my motivation is I need to help people be attracted to this product, because what it will do inside them once they get it in their mouth and in their body is revolutionary. There is no other way to say it. So I wanted the packaging to be as beautiful on the inside as the algae is powerful on the outside, is powerful on the inside. And I have to say I accomplished it. Now, this is not a talent I knew that I even had, but I have been a publisher of an interior design magazine. I've always loved fashion. All of my family are in the arts. They're artists or writers or jazz musicians. So I have a creative bent, but I didn't know it was there until I had to put it to work. And so I say this to let you who are listening know that if you have a passion to do something, even if it doesn't make sense, keep going, because it's like an onion, you will peel open talents that you didn't even know were there, and may not even have a chance to nurture until there's a need, right? And if your need is from the heart to make a difference, it can't be because you want to be just a millionaire or a billionaire. Truly, the universe will support you if your integrity is there. I truly believe it. There is no reason for me to be successful with this, other than I know it's my path and the universe is supporting me in my choices. There is no explanation for someone with zero science background, no knowledge of of art or design or package or supply chain. Because let me tell you, when you have a product, it's complicated. And if it's a food product with an expiry date, even more complicated. But I won't stop until I've started helping people in North America be healthier with something that's easy and safe enough for newborns or pets. And that's what algae is. There's no reason why just the Japanese have the great longevity and beautiful skin and hair. We should have it too. And it's just as easy to take as it is for them. But somebody needed to explain it. And, I point out, by the way, 10 years ago, nobody knew about matcha or kiwa or chia or
acai.
CBD. And even recently, 5 years ago, nobody knew about collagen. And then Vital Proteins came along, and God bless them. They educated people and got their product to market. And by the way, they got acquired last year for $1 billion. And so collagen is now pretty mainstream, right? Well, I'm going to do the same thing for algae. And I'd like to point out, by the way, that algae has all the same protein that collagen has, except it's a sustainable source. I don't know if people know this, but collagen is made from ground up bones of animals or fish, okay? Not sustainable. And if you want to know about sustainability, please educate yourself and watch a movie on Netflix called Seaspiracy.
Oh, geez.
Seaspiracy. It's about the poor oceans being destroyed by the commercial fishing. And in the movie, twice in the movie, they say the answer is to eat algae.
Wow.
Because it's a lot of the fishing a lot of the fishing is being done to get the fish oil because of the omega-3. And they point out, as do I all the time, where do you think the fish get the omega-3 from? Well, they get it from algae.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen it. I've seen Cowspiracy, the first one, but I haven't seen Seaspiracy yet because so many people have told me like little tidbits of it, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch this again. But
no, it's really good. It's a documentary style, and you'll love it when they twice, as I say, they come out and say algae is the answer. So it's like motherhood for me.
so speaking of sustainability, where is your algae grown?
Yes, we grow ours in Taiwan. So algae, 99.9% of it is grown in Asia. So it's Japan, China, India, Taiwan. And the best 90% of it comes from China. And that's why one of the problems is that the quality has been poor, and they don't monitor it as closely. In Taiwan, it's a huge industry, and it's almost as big as the beef industry is here. So they're very meticulous. The certification process is much more complicated and regulated. So that it's like the gold standard for algae. So that's where I wanted to have ours grown. And the company that grows it for us has been doing it for 50 years. Japan has really good chlorella algae, but I'm still a little cautious because of the Fukushima disaster that occurred and the radiation. So I would stay away from that for now. We get both our spirulina and chlorella grown in Taiwan. But my long-term goal is to grow it here in America. But that's going to take a lot of money, and I have to be a much bigger company before we can do that. But it could be grown in Arizona, and it uses very little water. It's grown in fresh water, as I mentioned, but you can recycle the water because algae kills bacteria. So you don't need a lot of water, but it has to have constant sunshine. And it only takes about a month to grow. So you'll be interested to know, because of that, you get like 10 or 12 crops a year because it takes about a month to grow and then a couple of weeks to dry and blah, blah, blah. But when you grow corn or soy or wheat, all of which, by the way, are useless nutritionally, but they're big crops here in America, you get one crop a year, right? Well, when the American government found out how nutrient dense algae is, and that it's all grown in Asia, and that you get 10 crops a year, they passed what's called the Algae Agricultural Act in the Farm Bill of 2019 to start issuing grants to farmers here in America to encourage them to grow it here. So we're hoping one day that we can sort of jump into that, but it's going to be a huge investment of time and money, and we have to figure out where to grow it. And there is algae being grown inside now using UV lights. They call it fermented algae. I haven't decided whether or not whether I support that or not. I do, from the perspective that it allows algae to be grown anywhere in any climate, because you could grow it in the Arctic and I think they do. In fact, Iceland, I think, grows algae inside. A lot of it right now that they're growing indoors is being used for cattle feed, because it's slightly lower quality. But like anything, it's just they have to refine it. And eventually, I'm sure the quality growing standards will improve to provide an equal and valid product equal to what you would currently get from growing it outdoors. So I'm going to leave the door open on that. But I will tell you that algae is going to be the biggest food industry of the 21st century. And I don't say that lightly. It's just that the science has been around for so long, and because we are in a environmental crisis and sustainability has become a very much bigger issue, every government in every country is looking for new ways to feed their population, and to do it in a way that's sustainable and makes sense. And it doesn't matter how you cut it, algae comes out every single time as the best solution. So you're going to see it. Wow. It's already being used in, Reebok launched a shoe 2 years ago, and all made of plants. And the liner was made of algae because it kills bacteria. Gore-Tex last year launched an entire clothing line made of algae because it's the most sustainable crop in the world. Unilever, which is a huge food company, invested in a company in the UK that makes water bottles out of algae. So you can, eat your water bottle after you drink the water if you want. And if you don't eat it, it will decompose within 27 days, which compared to a regular plastic bottle, which takes, I think, maybe 70 years or 700 or something crazy. So there's big companies. Bill Gates invested 200 million 10 years ago into algae. I mean, there's lots of action going on in algae, but most people don't know about it because why would they know about algae, right?
Yeah. Well, when we got the pharmaceutical companies and meat and dairy on the top of everything, it's kind of hard to hear about the ones that actually work and are sustainable.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what's next for you? Because I know you're already a national company. Are you international yet?
Well, not really. I mean, we do have a few customers. We do ship, to them around the world. And I'm not addressing the international market in a big way yet. I want to get really well known and very successful in the United States and then Canada, and then we'll expand elsewhere. So our next big thing is, we've been working with chiropractors and functional medicine for the last 10 years or 8 years, I guess. Because they understand the science of algae and they were welcoming to us and they've been selling it to their, patients. But we want to step it up a little bit. So we're now getting into the beauty industry and the spa community. We aren't sold through traditional retailers yet, not in a big rush yet because we're not ready for the Sephora's or Whole Foods. But I do want to get into have a bigger called a footprint at retail, but it's always going to be specialty retailers. We've turned down places like CVS because it's just not appropriate. We're a premium brand, high quality. We want to go where it makes sense. So we definitely want to get out to the market in a much bigger way, and then put the pedal to the metal, as they say, and just get as big as we can, so we can have as big of an impact as we can. And then when that's happening, then I want to set up a foundation to start supporting other plant-based related organizations and activities, conferences. My dream is it could be 5 or 10 years to set up what I call the Algae Academy to teach people algae nutrition so you can get a certification just like you can in other kinds of, biohacking education. So, and then I, obviously want to grow it ourselves and, eventually we'll probably try to expand into China where they already know a lot about algae. So it would be a very big market for us, but that's, I would have to be with a large company as an investor or partner to do that. That's not my specialty. So, but I think the heavy lifting is done. We've gone through the science. We've got the packaging. We're building the credibility. I was on Dr. Gundry's podcast. It airs next month. And he's a pretty big guy in plant-based nutrition. And I was honored to be on his show. And we were in a movie called Reversed that's airing in the fall about taking diabetics and reversing their diabetes with plant-based nutrition, keto nutrition, and algae and fitness. So there's a lot of things that are going on that will start lifting us into better visibility and credibility. My job is just to keep the quality high, the ethics high, the knowledge is clean and available as possible. I'd hope to be on some TV shows maybe this year. So I met Dr. Oz a few years ago. I haven't been on Ellen, I'd love to be on Ellen. It's her last season, right? So if anybody knows Ellen, tell her, she needs to get the Algae Gal on her show. That's me. I'm the Algae Gal.
So I do have another question about the actual product. So we talked a little bit about what is in Energy Bits, but what's not in it?
What's not in it? There's no
Yeah.
sugar, no caffeine, no chemicals, no binders, no animal products, no carbs, zero carbs for those of you who are keto. So it's great for intermittent fasting. Um, it's just one ingredient. It's either spirulina or chlorella. The chlorella is certified organic. The spirulina is grown organically. There is nothing else. And we air dry it instead of using heat. So the enzymes are intact. So it's a raw food. Spirulina is a live food. Um, you know, when I first started, people kept saying, oh, it tastes terrible. You know, you should add sugar to it. I will agree, spirulina is not a very good flavor. So I highly recommend you swallow it. The chlorella tastes better. It's more like a sunflower seed, crunchy flavor. So if you eat it with sea salt or almonds or macadamia nuts, it can turn into a great snack. But there is nothing you can do really to spirulina. But I'm still very proud that I resisted all of those, people, because I have learned that there are more and more people with food issues. They have
Yes.
dietary restrictions, whether it's dairy or sugar or carbs or they have a leaky gut or
Gluten.
autoimmune.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why Dr. Gundry loves us so much is because, as he points out, there's a lot of lectins and oxalates in certain types of vegetables like nightshades and spinach or even almonds, frankly, that can puncture your stomach lining and cause food to get into your bloodstream, which is what causes autoimmune. Well, algae, and the reason why they have these oxalates, the plants have oxalates and lectins, is to protect themselves from bugs or predators. And they evolved as a way to defend themselves because they were plant-based, creatures. Well, algae didn't start in the land. It still doesn't grow in the land. It started in the ocean. We harvest it, as I pointed out, in fresh water. But it is in the ocean. So it's never had to develop lectins or oxalates to defend itself. So there aren't any. So it's the perfect food. Like I keep saying, everything I find out about algae is like, oh my God, you do that too. So you get all the benefits of chlorophyll and the fiber and all the nutrients and all the antioxidants of plants, but you get zero of what's called anti-nutrients, which are these things that can cause difficulty in your digestion. By the way, things like oxalates interfere with your body's ability to absorb iron. So this is a big issue. So you gotta, especially for women. So anyways, I just feel I've got like a Nobel Prize winner child here with algae, and my job is to coach it and protect it and help it get understood by the rest of the world, because it's a prodigy, and prodigies don't know how to do that. I'm like algae's agent.
Algae's agent. I love that. Oh my God. It's crazy because I know with our podcast today, we've probably only touched not even half of what we discussed on the first time we had talked, and you've got probably 50 times this kind of information. We could turn this into a whole series, I think. But unfortunately, we only have an hour here today. So I do want to ask you just a couple last questions on the entrepreneur side. In my opinion, from the stories that I've heard from you, from what I see the company growing into, you have just really you found this dream, you fell in love with it, and you have really just not let any of these obstacles stop you. Like, okay, cool, there's another bump in the road, time to keep going, right? So what kind of advice do you have for, women that are listening right now that may be in the beginning of their businesses, or maybe they're going through some struggles and they're just kind of ready to give up? What would you say to them?
Well, trust me, I know that feeling. So here's the thing. Truly identify why you are doing what you are doing. And if it's truly because it brings you joy, that's number one. It needs to bring you joy. You don't have to be solving the world's problems. Bringing you joy, we're here on the planet to learn how to find our own joy. That's number one. And so it's just like, I was watching Simone Biles doing her triple, quadruple spin in the air. And, she didn't get to do that overnight. She probably committed 10 years of refinement for those 3 seconds of perfection. So, lighten up on yourself a little bit and understand that getting to where you are happy with what what it is that you had in your head, it's going to take multiple reiterations. It's not a straight line. It's a zigzag. Applaud your small wins, however small they are. The fact that you didn't give up is a win. But also, on the other hand, be realistic, because if maybe you're running out of money or you're running out of time, maybe it needs to be put on the back burner for a little while. That's not giving up. That's and take feedback. Like we were trying to get into the spa market, and people were telling us how much they loved the product, but they hated our packaging, and rightfully so, because it was black and spas are white. So I took that under advisement. I thought, okay, I clearly have to redesign, and I did, and they loved it. So, but listen, some people are going to give you, a suggestion to drop it because it's stupid or whatever. They don't have they can't see your vision. And other people want to truly help you, and they see the potential, but that you need to have, some adjustments made. Those are the ones you want to listen to. And so here's a great analogy for you. As an entrepreneur, and I don't know if it works for all entrepreneurs, but it did with me when I decided to do this. I had the vision of what this could be, like, instantly, and that was like 13 years ago. I instantly saw where this could go, but I knew it was going to take a long time. So for me, it was like, imagine when you I'm sure all of you have done puzzles. So when you buy a puzzle, you've seen the puzzle lid, right? You know what the puzzle is supposed to look like. But when you come home and you tip that, open up that puzzle box, and you dump all those puzzle pieces onto the table, it's a mess, right? And so here's this pile of stuff that nobody else has seen the lid, so they don't know what it is. And you try to recruit them to come and help you and say, oh, I'm not going anywhere near that mess. So your job is to just slowly and methodically start putting the pieces together. Keep putting them together until eventually some of the picture starts to show up. Now it's a little easier to recruit other people to come and help you, because they can start to see that there's something there. And the more pieces you put in there, and the more you put in, the easier and easier it gets, until finally the puzzle is done. And then they want to do the next one with you. That's what it's like to be an entrepreneur who has the vision of something no one else has understood or possibly ever even dreamed of. It's our job as the entrepreneur to help show them what's in your head, but you have to do it in a way that they can relate to. So I knew it was going to take a long time. I didn't know it was going to take this long, but I had my vision, and I am not giving up on it. And you shouldn't either, but just be aware that a lot of people won't understand it and won't want to join you until they can see more.
Wow. That was such a chilling analogy. Like, I literally got goosebumps as I'm like predicting what you're going to say next. I'm like, I get it. This is so cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, because for a while I was getting angry because people couldn't see it. And then I realized, well, you know what? That's part of my job. I have to help them see it. That's why I made new packaging, so I can help them see how, because so much of us, we're affected by what visual cues. And one of the reasons algae never took off in America is because the Japanese and the Asians were using the same Japanese and Asian packaging here that they use at home. But Americans have different aesthetics. So I knew it was my job to find an aesthetic that would connect with the consumer here. And I feel I've achieved that. But so again, my goal and my vision was never about me. It was always about, how can I help people understand this thing that will help them? So, but yeah, I was so happy when I finally made that my own little, I thought this is like having a puzzle. Yeah. And so yeah, it's a great analogy. So try to understand that. Don't get angry with people that don't get what it is that you're doing. And if the process brings you joy and when you finally get to where you want to be, that's giving you joy. Because think about it, you don't want to go through the struggle forever. You will
Right.
struggle to get to a certain point, and then you're going to hopefully be successful. So now it's like, cooking a wonderful meal. Now you can enjoy it, and
Yeah.
other people will help you just take it to the next level. But
Yeah.
there is some struggle in the early years. There's no question.
Yeah, I mean, and I can relate to this too, just even on my fitness journey. It's like most of my life I've been in decent shape, but I committed to a stage competition this year. And so it has been like diet, exercise. Now we're adding twice exercise a day. Now we're cutting your calories again. Oh, we're going to shift it because that didn't quite work how we wanted. So we're going to add more protein and it's just like literally forming this piece of clay, which is me, into what I would like the finished product to be. And that sort of like dedication and the ups and the downs and the I'm hungry and I don't want to, I'm too tired and all this stuff. It's like, oh my God, this is literally like starting my own business in another way.
Yeah. There's a lot of sacrifice. So you have to, like, I haven't had a date in 10 years. I'm not happy about that, but I knew there wasn't room for that and this. So I'm looking forward to maybe having a social life again one day, but it is what it is. And I chose this path and I don't regret it. And same with you, and you look back and you at least know that you accomplished something that you wanted, and
Yeah.
just pat yourself in the back for stepping up, just even trying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. How much easier is it just to stay at the regular job and do the regular things and have the
Yeah.
guaranteed paycheck? And
Yeah.
well, gosh, Catherine, this has been really cool. I was never really able to hear a lot about the business side of things before, so I'm really grateful we were able to dive into that as well as get into the totally nerdy algae stuff, which
Yeah.
I love and
Yeah.
obviously you love as well. But thank you for your time today. So for people that are interested in finding out more information about Energy Bits or about you, where's the best place to go?
Yes, come to our website, energybits.com, ENERGY, B for boy, IT for Tom, S for Sam. And we have a 20% discount code, Vegan Danielle, all one word. So when you come to the shopping cart, you'll see a coupon box and type in Vegan Danielle and you'll get 20% off everything. Now, just as a recap, we sell spirulina, which gives you energy mentally and physically. And we actually have two brands because I found that, and one is called Energy Bits, that's the original one, but we found women weren't attracted to the blue packaging. And because women's health is very big for me, it started because of my sister, and it does build your skin and hair health. So we have a second brand of spirulina called Beauty Bits, but it's identical to Energy Bits. Somebody said, oh, we've got a boy spirulina and a girl spirulina. So sort of. Then we have chlorella, which is the called recovery bits. And that's the one that pulls out toxins and builds your immune system so you recover from your day or recover from your workout or drinking or whatever. And then our fourth brand is Vitality Bits, which is a blend of the two algae. So it's kind of a twofer, just if you want simplicity. And I don't want people to get sticker shock. A bag or a large box is $120, but with the discount code, it's down to $96. But I just want you to know, I used that quote we have from NASA that says 1 gram of algae has the same nutrition as 1,000 grams of vegetables. So I did the math, and it turns out that a bag of our algae tablets, which would be $96, has the same nutrition as 551 pounds of vegetables. Now, at $3 a pound, that would be about $1,600, right? So it's efficient nutrition. And also, vegetables will go bad if you don't eat them all or go moldy. Algae never goes bad. It has an expiry date, usually for 3 years, but technically it will never go bad. You can keep it for years. So it's very efficient. You just even take 3 or 4 tablets a day just to give yourself the green nutrition you want. If you want a great workout, take closer to 10 or 15 or even 20. Our NHL players put 75 in their smoothie before a game of spirulina. and they put 75 of the chlorella recovery bits afterwards, folate lactic acid. I personally have about 100 a day at least. I love them. I couldn't live without them. But even if you just took 2 or 3, just think of it. That's nutrition from 2 to 3 plates of vegetables, because each tablet has the same nutrition as a heaping plate of vegetables that you don't have to carry home, clean, cook, or eat. So if you can swallow water, in 2 seconds, you get all the nutrition that you need. That's why I love it so much. I know that people can now get the nutrients they need to be healthy, and it doesn't take them, it's effortless. It's absolutely effortless.
Cool. So I'll put both of those links on there if people are interested in just trying them out. But I will say from my own experience, I've been using these for a couple years. I think I had mentioned when I did the IG live with you guys that I forgot that I still had the bag from you, and they found them in my fridge, and I was like, oh shoot. And I was like looking, I'm like, do these expire? I'm like, they're fine. But I'll literally, like, anytime I go in the fridge, I see the little bag there, and I'll just like stick my hand in and grab like 10 of them and eat them. I like them.
Yeah. They never go bad. So they're good. So yeah, they may not taste as good as they did initially, but they never go bad. Algae is the weirdest plant. Even when it's growing, if the growing conditions deteriorate, it never dies. It just goes dormant until the growing conditions return. And I'll let you go. But a funny story I read, the National Geographic team went up to the Antarctic and took some chunks of ice that they carbon dated to like 3 billion years old. And there was some algae attached to some of the ice. So out of curiosity, they put the algae in a petri dish and added some water, and the darn thing started growing again. That's why algae is just so different. There's nothing else like it in the world.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So it's cool stuff. Trust me, it will be good for you, your family, your kids, your pets, everybody.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I'm so happy to hear that your sister's better and that we're getting the word out. We got to just keep on spreading the word about this stuff. And I'm glad that we had this podcast. It's been a great refresher for me as well as how important all of this is. So thank you again. And then thank you everybody who's listening today. We will catch you next time. Yeah.